कौन सा वीडियो चला दोगे? अच्छा ओके. Hello, good morning, everybody. My name is Shashi Mohan. I hope that you are doing good and keeping safe in current time. And so today uh, we have another episode of our business talk, wherein we have been bringing domain experts from different fields, uh, and they present their experience. They share their experience from different areas, which is for the benefit of our startup ecosystem, our members. I would quickly inform that Entrepreneur Association of India is working on development of entrepreneurship across country, and we have been doing several activities, and our weekend business talk is one of the series which we are running it since almost 1.5 months now, and we have brought in many experts who has discussed. So today I hope that you are whosoever is logging, whosoever is listening to us is ready with their questions, and they can share your questions through our websites. You can write it here in the chat box, and we will request the expert to answer. And today we have one very prominent expert and a very prominent subject, which is mobile device security. And we know that India, I mean, there is huge volume of mobile devices, and then we will also try to find out the opportunities related to that and the challenges, and for startups, what they are, required to plan and all. So, with these words, I would request Mr. Abhishek, who would introduce Mr. Ravi Bhagat, who is the speaker for today. Abhishek ji.
Yes, first of all, good morning to everyone. Good morning to all the people who have joined us, and to a very knowledgeable and very interesting topic and very lively topic. We all are very excited because we all use a mobile device. I think more than anything else in our 24 hours. And I welcome our respected, esteemed speaker. Sri Ravi Bhagat sir, and who has always been a guiding force. And he is a senior director at KLA, and he has always been talking about different aspects of cybersecurity, mobile device security. I remember last time when he was at a BA office, and he explained a lot of things about mobile device and mobile data. And so we hope that this is going to be a very interactive as well as very interesting session for everyone. It's not about just about techies, but also about non-techies like us, because we all are using we all are, I mean, techies in some or other way. We are using different apps, and you are using a mobile phone more than laptops rather for different different usage, different utility. So again, sir, welcome, sir, and well, we welcome on behalf of Bihar Entrepreneur Association, and also, Sasi ji is already there from Entrepreneur Association of India. So, and I'm thankful to Himanshu for coordinating for everything. So I welcome him also. So I think we should start with our speaker's speech.
April. Namaste, everybody.
Namaste, sir.
Thank you, Abhishek ji, Shashi, and Himanshu for coordinating this. This is really an interesting topic. I would start from, let's get this slideshow going. So just bear with me. Okay, everybody can see the screen. Okay, everybody can see the screen.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
It's clear.
So the first is that this is an unprecedented time. In 100 years, people say that this kind of pandemic hasn't happened. So the first is stay safe. I know sitting in the house does lead to different ideas sometimes, and sometimes boredom. But being safe and sound is better than having issues or going out and taking care of small things which doesn't matter. So this is really a very serious topic. So be safe. Let's talk cybersecurity. So, I was watching the news, 15th of August, Prime Minister Modi was talking about cybersecurity. And I think in general, cybersecurity is really becoming a big force in everybody's world. Just 10 years ago, the number of mobile devices, the number of technologies people had was very, very limited. And in last 10 years, it has just bloomed and grown like crazy. A little bit about me, and I don't know how you see my video. Is it coming or not? Well, so I threw in my picture there. I have been into technology for last 20 years. I used to work in PCL. This is a company which was next to HCL at that time. They used to make computers, and I used to be the system engineer. And I came to US during the Y2K area. So people who do not know Y2K, you can look it up. But this was the time when all the clock was going to become zero and reset itself. So it was a big deal at that time. I teach a master's class of cybersecurity at San Jose State. This is one of the prominent universities in Bay Area or Silicon Valley, as they call it, since last 4 years, more than 4 years now. And the specialization on this one is around making sure there are different security aspect you can think of. Lots of subject, right from mobile to programming to hardware to understanding the basic knowledge of security in the mobile world or technology world. So we cover quite a bit. I have done about 40 plus projects during this cycle, talking about spyware, simulation, attacks. I advise, my students, and, after the student has graduated, also we are in touch to make sure that they are doing projects which is meaningful and required for the industry. I like to travel and explore different places. I read quite a bit. Again, my passion has been I used to play hockey on the grass hockey, not the ice hockey, which is more popular in US. And I have a tennis court nearby, so I play tennis there. Again, some more, I was in Sainik school in Bihar. This is a long time ago. And it was Sainik school Tilaiya. Nowadays, a lot of Sainik school has come up. Okay, so what drives information security? And the way we all should look at it, this is more of a high level, where does this cybersecurity came from, right? So, 20 or 25 years ago, people used to do the security of protecting data from a compliance perspective, right? The regulation is required, the industry is mandating certain things. And so it came as a compliance, and auditors made a lot of money saying, hey, this has to be done because of data protection need for the country, for the business. And then it started growing into internal threats, right? People realized in the last 10, 15 years that people can take a design which is in a computer and reproduce the product in another country at a very cheap price. And the internal threats became higher and higher, right? Think of somebody who has spent 10 years designing something, and somebody takes a copy of that and rebuilds a product somewhere, across the world. And it all started with somebody internal. So it's like, the saying goes is that threat starts from internal first, right? Because internal people know more, what we are doing, why we are doing, and, how we are doing. And then as the mobile thing exploded, right, we saw a sharp increase in the external attacks. So external threats. And I'll give you a couple examples later. But cyber attack, making sure your site is down, making sure your services are down, making sure your data is compromised. It was it is becoming a very organized crime. There's a lot of money around this. There's a financial incentive. If you look it up, the large companies like Amazon, Google's, and all, they are giving a lot of money for finding the gaps in security of their platform. So there's a lot of organized work going on, corporate espionage, right? One company against another company, and they can't be without a network, and they want to protect data from being lost. There's a government-sponsored attack, one country against another country. Social engineering is another one where people are directly targeting people to get some information, and information is becoming key. If I see in India in the last 5 years, the digitization has just increased quite a bit, and all of you are having Aadhaar cards and PAN cards, and those are all digital technologies. Moving on to security incidents. So just as a holistic level, if you think of it, 4 years ago, the security incidents, all these color codes and the size basically represents the security vulnerability and security incident which has happened. So it's no longer just the vulnerability, but actually the incident is happening. And those are because of the devices are misconfigured, or there is a programming code which is vulnerable, and so there are a lot of security incidents going around, mostly around computer services, healthcare, financial markets, and all. So quite a bit of going. If you start looking at which country or which geography is getting impacted, the biggest one is US, and then there are other countries, and this keeps on evolving depending on what the target is and what the vulnerability or what the data people are keeping in those countries and how they interact. So this is not going to reduce anytime soon. This will grow. I just thought give two broad examples, and this is happened in last 10 years, right? So you may have read about this, something called Stuxnet. This is an example where a lot of people collaborated to target a nuclear plant in Iran, right? If you read about it, it was a multi-stage compromise. And the idea was that somehow we want to slow down or break the system. And the target was a Windows XP system. So everybody is on Microsoft Windows today. They may be on Windows 7, Windows 10, or different versions of Windows. But this was a Windows XP system, which was an older system, and this system was controlling the power plant converters and power plant equipments and all that stuff. And what turned out was that the computer, XP computer, was not connected here directly, but there was another computer which was connected, and the virus moved by use of USB. If you think of USB drives we all use, right? This is where the data moves from one system to another system, and we all have to be very, very careful of what we move and when we move, because there are very smart people who can compromise that. Another interesting one, out of all the compromises, this was another one. I did a study as I was teaching, Bangladesh bank heist, right? This is $81 million, started on a Thursday. So think of it, right? Bangladesh doesn't work on Friday. So on Thursday evening, after the bank, or around the time bank was closing, this compromise or hacking, you may say, started, right? And they use this, moving the money using an interbank SWIFT system. And a bank can only, initiate a transfer through a, government-based system. And during this heist, right, 5 to 7 tries was successful out of 35. And in that 5 to 7 tries, they moved the money of $81 million from their bank to another bank in Philippines. And the way this bank moved the money so fast that within 2 days, nobody could figure out. By the time they came out of the weekend, Friday, Saturday, right, they could not figure out where the money went. The money went to people, it was cashed out, the accounts was created in real time, and money got stolen. So there was some recovery, but still, I think the large part of money was stolen. And it was identified, the flaw in the banking system, the way the banks are authorizing the money transfer and all. So it was a very interesting, way of compromising money. The challenge when you start seeing these are the examples which is documented. Some people know about it and some people can talk about it. But if you sit back and think about it, this doesn't happen to me, this doesn't happen to my enterprise, my company, my country and all. You'll be surprised to see that a lot of time people don't disclose these because it shows bad on them. And so there are, smart people, you can call them hackers, you can call them, bad actors. They are benefiting from that. So if you think of it, right, in the last 6 months, we have been staying at home. And there is still a compromise going on. We are using more computers than we used to. We are, doing online banking. We are sharing information all the time, more than what we used to before. And the breach is increasing. This is a report from IBM. A cost of data breach report is $3.86 million. It's global average of a data breach. One data breach is costing this much. Healthcare is higher, PII data. Each country is saying that you cannot take our personal information to another country. That is another one there. And then there is a US. And one reason why US is targeted, because when you target somebody, the loss of data is high and people pay ransom, people pay money around it. So that's why US is the target for most of the hackers or bad actors. And as I was looking at it, in 2020, Verizon does a report. Verizon is a network company like AT&T and BSNL and other network providers, Geo to mention. And they do a report for cybersecurity that 97% of the incident of mobile happen due to loss of mobile devices, right? You have a phone, you lose it. You drop it, you throw it away, do something about it. And people are using that device, people are mining the data from that device and compromising it. Okay. So why is this happening? If you take a look back, right? Everybody talks about virtual world. And I have been in this industry for, more than 20 years. Several years ago, it used to be physical. So you have to go to a server. And I'm sure if you see all the, sci-fi movies and, action movies out there in the world, you'll see the actor going to a server or a place where he can plug in a cable, plug in a port and all, and get the data out. So 10, 15 years ago, we were more physical than, virtual today. Today, we are more virtual. The hardware where the software is run, where the software is, installed, doesn't matter because all of this thing has become programmable. And you will hear people talk about software defined. And I have seen this industry has changed from a hardware-based companies to software-based. If you think of, companies out there, Google of the world, Facebook of the world, Apple, you talk about it, right? If you think 10, 15 years ago, the biggest company in the computing industry was IBM, Intel and all. Nowadays, nobody talks about hardware companies. People are talking about, Microsoft. Microsoft is selling less hardware and more software. So everything is becoming software defined. What does software defined means? Now you can programmatically change things on the fly. You can programmatically change the data while it's in motion and things like this. That's another one. What is it giving? It's flexible. Our demands of technology, our demands of services is becoming very flexible. If I can do this, why can't I do this? People earlier used to say, oh, this is not compatible. This hardware is not going to sustain this. Now, because of software defined, it's becoming very flexible. There has been a huge investment globally. Everybody is trying to go to virtual, digital world, digital India, digital software. Anything is becoming virtual. And a lot of large companies, if we use mobile, you will know that it doesn't matter what hardware you're using, it's just the application and data and the software you're using. So there's a huge investment behind the scene. The geo advantage and disadvantage, right? In the virtual world, it doesn't matter where you are. Long time ago when I was in school and colleges, it used to matter you are sitting in a particular city and you can't access some computing farms and all. Today, it doesn't matter. You can be in the smallest country in the world, smallest city in the world. If you have an internet connection, you have access to almost 90-95% of the data in the world. The compute is cheap, right? I remember that 20 years ago when we were trying to sell computers, it used to be at least 50,000 rupees to get a computer, right? Now these phones are becoming so cheap that those have become a computer by itself. The computers are cheaper, laptops are cheaper, and all. Buying a server on the cloud is becoming cheaper. Cloud services is booming. Definitely, there are large companies like Microsoft and Amazon, but there are all kind of smaller companies who is giving cloud services at the cost of a very small meal, if you may, right? So you can test the application, you can develop services. The data set is really growing very, very fast. If you have a phone, if you have a device, think of the pictures you used to take before and now. You just take a picture of, you're eating 3 days food, it'll take 1 GB. You're creating videos, you're creating data at ever growing speed. What is happening behind the scene is that all this information is getting stored in the device and it's aware. Is it morning in the part you're doing the work? What location it is? Who are the people who are around you? So this contextual is becoming a big deal. So you can really literally touch anybody in the world at any given time and everybody will respond. And the biggest enabler, apart from all this, is becoming mobile. So that today, if you go to any show of computers or technologies, if you don't have a mobile application, people don't even consider you as a worthy provider of service or solution provider. It has to be mobile. It could be 3-inch device, 4-inch device. It could be 5-inch device or a pad. But it has to be mobile. It has got to be flexible and available all the time. Now, why mobile, right? The picture I basically grabbed from the internet is talking about all we care about is application and data, right? There are more than 2 billion devices, 200 crores devices and growing every day. The cost of device is becoming 1,000 rupees to 1 lakh and increasing. Depends on what you are looking for. The data size, I remember that GB used to be the biggest, 15 years ago. Now people are talking about TVs and, petabytes and all. If you look at your mobile, everybody has few GBs, right? It depends on, it's trending towards a terabyte now, right? And very soon it'll get to petabytes because we are all creating data. We are always connected, right? If you look back on what 2G was, 3G, 4G, LTE, 5G, 5G new radios, all these are evolving very fast. And what is it doing? It's making sure that you are connected to the network and you are able to transfer data all the time, which means you can do things, you can get information, you can get work done all the time. And the patience level of all of us is becoming less and less. I sent you the message 15 minutes ago. Why haven't you responded to that? And so this is kind of creating a lot of stress, to all of us, and with this platform. So earlier people used to say, oh, I'm disconnected, I'm this part of the world, I cannot connect, I go to this place, I don't have signals. It's no longer true, right? You may get a 3G, you may get some 2G kind of SMS messages, but you get messages. A lot more work is getting done on mobile, right? If you see financials, all the bank, credit cards, transfer and all, everything is coming to one device. And it would not be too far where you are walking away from your house and you just have your phone in your hand. You don't need anything. You can open your car, you can do bank transfer, you can pay for services, you can pay for food, you can pay for everything. And this is a market where all the large companies, right? You name it Google, Apple, Facebook, everybody is trying to mine the data and trying to make money. So good people are trying to do that. The bad actors is trying to look at your transaction and see if they can compromise. Everybody knows about the security validation, OTP. This is not new anymore, and it works all the time. And the best part is that these devices are so strong and available and resilient that it works everywhere. Literally, it works everywhere. And if for some reason you are on a device which is not connected to the network, at least it has the data so that you can keep on working. So that whole philosophy of anywhere, any device, anytime is true, right? You cannot say anybody that I could not get your message for one day, maybe a few minutes, yes, but it has to be always connected. The signals. So on the mobile, we always talk about 3G, 2G, and 4G. But think of it. These devices is sending Bluetooth information. These devices could be your Wi-Fi hotspots. These devices getting signals from GPS, and more signals are being sent to this device or received from this device. So we all think of productivity and efficiency, but behind the scene, right, there is a security issue. And security issue is how do you protect all this information from your device? Now, if you start looking at mobile, and this has a lot of information, so I don't want to use this time to go through all of the details, but think of the application on the mobile, right? Each one of us has more than 40, 50 applications, right? And each application has threats. It has known information. It is, when you install the application, it has vulnerabilities. A lot of time you don't upgrade the software. If you have got the software from somebody, your friend, which is not certified, it may have vulnerabilities. So vulnerability basically means the weakness. The application was developed by somebody. He may be, doing a good job, but he may have kept some flaw open for his own purpose or for connecting to other devices for future needs, right? So the vulnerabilities are intentional sometimes it's unintentional. Then the third part of mobile apps is configuration. When you get the application on the mobile, the first thing is, let's go, right? Let's start using the application. When the disclaimer comes, or do you want to enable this functionality? Do you want to disable that functionality? I have learned that 95% of the people don't check those. They say, I just want to use this, right? I don't care about the camera. I don't care about, the audio, the speakers and all that stuff. So they basically configure these devices for default. What default means is, as soon as you get that software, you have to think of the software developer, how he is going to make money, how is he going to benefit from what you downloaded, right? And it has to be financial because, as the saying goes, there is no free food out there, right? Somebody has to pay for what you are doing, right? So this is on the app side, right? Think of the devices, right? So you have the devices from 1,000 rupees all the way to 1,00,000 rupees, right? Why do these devices cost higher? And one of the reason is that in these devices, right, the higher end devices, they have taken care of threats, right? The data loss. I'll show you example of your data loss so easy to do that you can give permission without knowing. Again, the vulnerability is the same thing I talked about, more think of application and hardware. Same in configurations. If you enable USB or if you enable some port functionality and all that stuff, right, it can be stolen. Networks. I'll cover network later, but think of it, right? As soon as you see a Wi-Fi, you start connecting to it because your 2G, 3G data or 4G data is less used, right? Now, it's very easy to set up a Wi-Fi and intercept all traffic of anybody. You go to a public place, you'll find a lot of free Wi-Fis. But those free Wi-Fis is a risk of attack, vector. Vulnerabilities, again, when you're going through Wi-Fi, there are a lot of, network, open ports and open devices. Also configuration, right? Maybe the guy who is, or the team who is giving you free Wi-Fi, right? Maybe he's, tapping into the configuration of the router. Maybe he's tapping into the content of the services hosted by that organization. And the lastly is the web content. If you have used mobile phone, everything which comes to you almost 90% of the time is coming through a content provider. It could be a website, it could be application, all that kind of things. Again, there are threats. If I send you an SMS message with a link, when you talk about the URL, It's the link which is having HTTP blah 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 blah, and you click on it to see a picture, see a information. But those could be compromised all the time. This is a big vector. People are using it. People are talking phishing, smishing, and you'll hear those words, right? But the idea is that I forward you a message. If you trust me, you will click on it and say, okay, it has come from Ravi. I'm sure I trust it. But it may not have come from me. I may have been compromised on any of these three vectors, and now you are basically, going to a link which is compromised. Malformed content, right? When you get the link, right, on the mobile, the problem is that it's so small that you are tempted to click on the link instead of reading what the link is about. So think of it. If you think of something like, let's say, India, for example, I is capital, I can be replaced with number 1, right? If you're not looking at what the type of the character is, you may click on a site which is taking you somewhere else. That is called malformed content. It has been changed, right? And this is happening to companies like Amazon, companies like Facebook, companies like Google, who are providing you the content, photos, Microsoft, and all. What these smart bad actors are doing, they are not changing the first part, they are changing the last part or somewhere in between. Okay? And then the last part on the web content in the configuration is you set up a web server, right? There's a free web service out there. You start, posting your application, posting your data. They don't encrypt a username and password, right? Because encrypting username and password means they have to buy certificates, they have to buy different security tools to make it secure. And they still, I'm just testing, I'll just send it to a few of my friends. And, lo and behold, people start using it. And then nobody wants to disrupt the people who are already using it. So again, a lot of mobile risk metrics. When you think of mobile, think of these 4 areas, right? And then think of the threats and configurations. It has been documented that a lot of people buy these network devices and equipments and mobile from the market, and they never change the default password. They never change the default configuration. So it opens up a whole vector of vulnerability risk, if you may, and people misuse that. So with all the things, what you should do for a mobile, right? When you get a mobile application, right, and this is an example, right, from Gartner, if you just take Apple device, right, it has container for all application, it has antivirus, it protects your password in a keychain. And it has functionality like AirDrop, it has functionality like iCloud, it has functionality like iCloud backup, VPN connections, Touch ID for fingerprinting. It has audio voice feature called Siri. It has SMS archiving, and this is just built into the platform itself, right? Think of it beyond that, right? What application you need? Let's say WhatsApp is your favorite application or something like that, right? All those applications, how is it managed? But before you go there, right? First, you have to think of, why do you use your mobile, right? I mean, it sounds like a funny example, but some people may say, I used to make it phone call, but that used to be 5 years ago. I think hardly people call, right? People send messages. So when you are sending messages, when you are calling, whatever you're doing with the mobile, you have to pause and think once in a while, saying, what happens if I lose this device, right? If you have gone fully digital and all your contacts, everybody right, has number. And I remember, right, 10 years ago, people used to, in this case, let's say Robert, right? They used to have one phone number, right? And maybe one email addresses. Nowadays, people have multiple phone numbers. When they travel, they have a different number. Within the country, they may have different number. They may have multiple SIMs and things like those. If you lose contact, what happens? And this happened to me, and this happened to one of the person I was helping out. When he lost his mobile, when he lost his contact, he literally said that I feel that I am 10 years behind. Because in the contacts, he has named the doctors, he had named the prescriptions, he has taken pictures of the prescription. So he had put so much information on the mobile that without the mobile, he could not feel or think of how will we survive. So you have to think of, if you lose your device, right? Can you go buy another one and get your data back and all the data, right? Because there may be a data you will know that 3 months later that, oh, that was the data in the older phone or older device. And this is another piece of how much would you pay to recover. So you lose your phone, right? And we are talking about backups, we are talking about protecting data, but it's one of those health and hygiene, right? You should eat well, you should exercise and all. How many people do it? And if you don't think of losing the device, you will never plan, right? Think of your kids, right? If you have taken picture in last 10 years and all you have the picture is on that phone, right? If you lose that, all the memory is gone, right? You don't have any printout, you don't have any posters of them or a framed picture. It's all on the phone. We are sharing to each other. So this is where, and I highlighted this in red, is this is where people are financially gaining the highest, because they know that a phone, when it's lost, people will pay money to get it back. And the money is all debatable, right? So it's like a negotiation, right? Can you pay this much? Can you pay that much and all? You have to pay. If you lose your device and you want it back, you will pay. So what are you paying for? Think about it, right? The data, it could be documents, right? Your Aadhaar card, your application, your job, your salary, paycheck, pictures, your applications, financials. You have to kind of protect that. Contacts. I gave the example of contacts, right? And with the contacts, you are linking the addresses. You are linking the connection you have for that contact, and then security around it, right? So a lot of time, think of it. Within the house, there are 4 mobile phones, 2 mobile phones, 6 mobile phones, right? Who is seeing all your mobile phone? Because maybe you're sharing passcode, maybe you're not sharing passcode, right? So if you lose the phone, right, what is the security? If somebody says, this guy, I know he is my friend and I got his phone, it's very rare that people will not try to open your phone and give you back, right? They'll try to compromise the security, saying, hey, he may have some interesting message, let's check it out. And then the last one is phone number and SIM, the hassle of losing the phone, right? I thought that, there was an example in US, California, that one of the iPhone was not allowed to be cracked, right? Apple basically took a stand saying, I will not give you the method to break a password or break a phone of somebody, right? And so I found this interesting article that governments and other people may be using. And it's a company called Greybox. You can look it up. It's an Israeli-based company. And what it does is, if you connect the phone to one of these connectors, right, within minutes it can give you the code which is there on the phone, right? And the reason I gave this example is not for you to go and start thinking about it or looking at it, but it's the race of hardware and software with the bad guys, right? How easily, how targeted people are looking to compromise your mobile devices, because they can get a lot of information, right? You can look it up quickly. All this company is doing is they are compromising on a vulnerability. So the matrix I said, right? Application, device, anything which you can compromise, one vector, and you can get all the devices details you need. Okay. One thing which people say, that if you have a passcode, remember you put a digit and all, or you put a combination of numbers and all. The higher the the password size is, it's harder to break. Okay. So I'll just jump into some of the I think we are more than halfway into the discussion. So I just thought that I will give you some ideas to protect. I don't know how many of you have passwords on the phone, right? I have one. Some people don't have it, but take it seriously. Just like your ATM card, right? If you don't have an ATM pin, if somebody gets caught, they know the bank, they can go to the ATM faster and withdraw your money. So change your password periodically. The higher digit you keep, it's better. Multi-factor authentication, it's like the OTP. When you connect to a bank, they send you a message, you put that. So password is one big vector of protecting your data. Generally, people say, I am good at passwords, but think of it, how many passwords do you remember, right? And the analysis, people say that nobody can remember more than 7 passwords. And if you have to change once a year, you'll come down to 5. If you want to change, every 6 months, then you can only remember 3 to 4. So again, these are analysis done by some people out there to give you some idea that the password you should keep is, and my suggestion is, you should think of password as two keys, right? So if you have a locker, the traditional locker we used to have in the bank, you have a key, and the key is with the banker. So use a password which is very secure. Use it for financials and things like those, where you feel the money is there and there's personal information you don't want to compromise. And then use password which are common, right? So if you're using a news site, if you're using another site where you're just reading information, you're not contributing to it. So at least have two password patterns, and throw in some numbers and all that stuff. But password is important. People may say, "Oh, password is no longer relevant." It is still relevant, because when you think of all the systems behind the scene, everybody has not come to fingerprinting or iris scan and face scan and all. There is a compromise on the password. So if you feel that you had changed the password 5 years ago and you don't need to worry about it, think one more time. And again, where you are putting the money. A data leakage is another one, right? It may sound funny that, what will people do with my data, right? When they look at your data, there's a lot of information they get, where you have visited in last 1 month, 1 year, whatever, right? What user password have you used, right? What is the encryption your device is using? They tell a lot about you, right? So common use is photo and bank. All the net banking compromise has been less than 10%. But think of it: net banking is where the money is. This is an area where people will really, really go after. And one of the example, people say, "Oh, I'm using this free site," right? My suggestion is, whenever there's a free, pause, because again, I'm repeating that free. There's nothing called free in the world, right? Somebody is giving you some services free so that they can get some information. It may be a small information. So if you are using the application for, let's say in this case, right, Buy Via, right, or Air Asia, and I'm just saying few applications, right? Berkshire Hathaway is the biggest company in US, which has a lot of securities and financial involvement. Their application had 15 vulnerabilities. Air Asia application at one time had 11 vulnerabilities. BuyVia is another website where you can just buy electronics and buy online gears and all that stuff. These had vulnerabilities. So what happens is, when you install these applications, they are leaking information about you and your behavior, and that can be used against you. Maybe there's another application sitting here and collecting that data, right? So be careful how you use it. You may not think your data is important, but there are people who are basically aggregating the data of you as a family. They know you, who you are. They know who your wife or friends are, families, parents and all, and they are able to create a data of your family without you knowing about it. There is no marketing, there's no tool out there which can give that much data. And that's why people are paying a lot of advertisement money. If you do Facebook advertisement, Google advertisement, you'll find a lot of people are giving free service. And IPL is coming in few weeks. If you are trying to look for a mobile application to check out that game, and that is not the game which is from the publisher, somebody is giving you the app and compromising your security. So again, be safe and try to make sure that you understand what that thing is doing.
Excuse me, sir.
Sir,
We
I
have
just,
some.
excuse me.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you. Sorry
Go
to
ahead.
interrupt you in between. I guess it's a it's a huge subject. I think we need a couple of more
Sure.
webinars and talks on this. I in the same context,
Sure.
I got a small question. Basically, as we know that in India we have number of mobile phones more than the number of our population. I mean, it's
Sure.
around 1.4 billion. Okay, and smartphones are also at a very uh, higher number. And then second side, we just saw that that national security policy is 2020 is on the stage. I mean, I'm not sure that even if it is passed and made as an act, this is second dimension. Third is that due to uh, several companies, data companies in the market and providing either free or very cheap data. I guess that there are a large number of users using mobile phone, and of course, third thing is that the whole big population is using mobile phone. and they may not be even educated to understand, this situation, that their data, and they may be keeping all the confidential and information related to their bank. So these are three four aspects.
Sure.
I'm telling from Indian side, not so. In your presentation, I'll request you that you also cover that. What are
Sure.
the? I mean, these are the challenges. Of course, we understand that, but of course, these challenges would also bring some opportunities for people to work out something, some
Sure.
solutions related to that.
Sure, I
So,
will
if you have
cover
any
that
insight on
after a
that.
few slides. I'm going after solution. I just wanted to show different vectors. So that's a great question. I think we can talk about all the fear mongering, uh, but these are real ones. And when you start thinking of protecting that, I have some guidance. And again, this is the first one on the mobile. Again, as Abhishek and Shashi was saying, this is a vast topic, right? We can cover multiple things in subsequent ones if there is an interest. As you comment or pose the question, if you want to just talk about application, if you just want to talk about one kind of devices, we can deep dive and talk about the architecture and the flows and all that stuff. And that would be good for people who are developing application or trying to develop some tools around it. Again, this is a big market. So I'll cover some of it. And again, I think this was more for awareness and education, and then what we should do better to make it more sound and secure. Right?
A simple question also from my side, sir. Like I got a lot
Sure.
of question from the audience. So like phishing attack has been so normal nowadays. So like what are some of the common safety tips from expert point of view to the common people for the
Yeah.
phishing
So
attacks?
right. So one thing you have to think of, right, and that's why I created this slide, right? Right. A lot of people, as you mentioned that people have two devices, three devices, and all. The phishing attack is trying to get information about your data and application, right? And the phishing attack, the biggest vector of phishing is around the web content. They will change the URL as people are sending messages to each other, or through email or through SMS. They want to change the content and compromise that. So if you go to a site, it's not going to the legitimate site, it's going to some other site. So my suggestion broadly is that when you get a web link, if you're getting from a trusted friend, trusted family member, and you have to read that, right? Because we all are in a hurry, we are on the car, we are on the road, right? We quickly look at the link saying, let me see a picture, let me see a document. But because of the risk of mobile, right? Check that web URL, check that site, and then click on it. It will not take more than 10 seconds for you to analyze. If you take that 10 seconds, it will save you. So my suggestion is if you get, let's say, 20 links every day, try to say, I will click on 10 and I'll validate that. So it's, again, I think being aware is more important because, changing a behavior of not clicking on it, it's a slow progress, right? It's just like, taking care of your health, right? This is a vulnerability people are misusing all the time and trying to get data out of you. Okay? Goes to the vulnerability again. That's why I put this WhatsApp, email, Facebook, FaceTime, Zoom. The great question, phishing, smishing, all this stuff is the technical words people are using, but we are getting a lot of web links, right? So be careful what you get, and then pause for a second before you click on it. On the same lines, what we are talking about, right? Social engineering, right? Everybody is clicking on web links, right? Hey, let me see what my best friend has sent me. Let me click on it. Because I'm hearing that, for younger people, if you have not clicked on it and the other person has not seen the message in 10 seconds, people get upset saying, I haven't seen my message. So again, I don't think 10 seconds or 30 seconds makes a difference, but in some cases it may. But again, the idea is that, pause and think about it. Think of the device, right? It's a small screen size, right? We all have, gone from, when I was in school, there was less people having glasses. Now almost everybody has glasses in some way, shape, or form, right? Small screen size, we are zooming in, we are trying to read what the message is about. Is the message coming from a known person? limited display information. So, if you open a laptop and you see an email, at least you can
Yeah.
see 10 lines. But in the mobile, you are seeing 2 lines, right? And all of us are multitasking, right? So when you see the web links, right, pause and think about it where it is. Each of these links is also taking your location. And I took this picture, one example, a fitness tracking application. So fitness tracking application is, let's say, installed in people who are from armed forces, right? And this is always tracking your location. And people know that this person is army jawan, or he's an air force officer, or he is, some lawyer, some politician, right? He is basically sending out his message of location all the time, right? And this is going into the network of fitness tracking. And somebody who is looking at the server of fitness tracking server, they get all the information. All they're looking for is one person or one set of people, and they are able to get a pattern. Where does this person go? How long does he is there? Does he move within that location? And these devices are becoming so smart that they can give you detail wise. You are in this room, 20% of the time, and then you move to the kitchen, 30% of the time, and then you are bedroom 50% of the time. So this location is becoming very scary, and these data are coming from applications which you don't know about, right? So fitness tracking application, I took an example. If you are going to a gym and all, and it has an application, it's giving the data. If you're ordering food through Zomato or other ones, right? It's giving the location information, right? The second part is wireless Wi-Fi performance, right? Whenever you see a network, right, don't click on a free network, right? If it's a free and it's a government-sponsored one, go for it. But check out for free applications or free Wi-Fi's. It's very easy to do a man-in-middle attack to get the free Wi-Fi and then bypass the connection and route it to you for compromising the site. Use a VPN, right? People use VPN, and a lot of enterprise, what they have done for mobile security is they have started mandating VPN no matter what. A lot of people use the VPN to use Netflix in another country, or a DD Sports or some Star Sports in another country. Just be careful on what VPN you use. Also, people enable their phone with a hotspot, right? And nowadays, these hotspots are becoming very easy to identify, and standard password work from them. So just be careful with whatever passwords you share with the hotspot. Again, look at the outdated devices. So each, as we heard, right, people are buying phones. So what do they do with old phones? They may be putting that in the house. They may be giving it to somebody, right? It may be somebody, a friend. It may be somebody who is helping you with the house. It could be somebody who is driving you around because you think I will go to this latest and greatest phone. Let me give the older phone to somebody else. That information on the phone has a lot of data, right, about you in the last 1 year, 2 year, whatever you have used the phone. You have to really spend time to clean it up, right? Again, on the Android and Apple devices, Android has more vulnerabilities, Apple has less. But Apple also has a lot of compromises. As I gave the example earlier, people are putting new applications, and those are compromising those services because of the cost. Again, some
So,
more.
I would also request to cover, I mean, what are the business cases for a start? I mean, is there something which our startups also can think of, bringing some sort of tools? I mean, we do understand that there are bigger companies working on internet security and this antivirus and other things. But, if there are any scope wherein people can work out with some sort of, please highlight that as well.
Sure, sure. So again, two more areas, right? Cryptojacking attacks. These are the ones which is mining your device on the compute cycle. And I'll come back to that. Thank you for the question. So this one is basically you go to a site and you're watching the news and all that stuff. The service provider has put a software on your machine and using the compute cycles of your phone, right, to create bitcoins, to create some other, traffic for other sites. Again, this is getting common. Mobile ad frauds, right? Free application, all they use your data. They use, use only application from the app store. Don't use app from other places for the most part. This one is, a little bit more technical. Let me go to the opportunities for startup. I don't know how much time do we have, right?
We have some 15-20 minutes now.
We
Okay.
have times.
So one thing from a startup perspective is I like this slide, and this is from IANS. This is a research company who does a lot of information. If you start seeing each vector, right? Let's take off apps and threats, right? If you search on this bubble to say, can I develop a product to mitigate the threat? Can I look at the vulnerability? So let's say before people install application, right? Is there a utility somebody can develop to check the vulnerabilities of those? Is there a software somebody can check to see what is the information this app is doing? So for example, if you say, let's take the example of AirAsia, right? AirAsia, the airline application, you're installing the application, right? If a software can run a tool and say, oh, actually this application is sending, unauthorized remote access. It's opening a connection to AirAsia servers without your knowledge. It's using a software which has been not updated in the last 2 years, so it has security vulnerabilities. It has default configuration which you should watch out for. So default configuration could be location, default configuration could be password from another sites and things like those. So each of these vectors can be a product, can be a service, right? I'll give you two approach for going into the startup and a lot of projects which we have done, right? Who are the people who will pay you for any of these, right? So consumers will not pay for a startup to develop a vulnerability tool which will cost 15,000 rupees, right? So at the consumer level, I would say 90% of the time people will not pay for the security because they are looking for functionality. They're saying, hey, can I get this done? Can I do my banking transaction, right? But enterprise pay a huge amount of money. So think of it, right? When you think of consumer, 2 billion phones out there, what is happening is that our life of work and personal is no longer separate. It's all combined into one device, one platform, right? So on a mobile devices, you can have 5 applications for enterprise and 20 applications for personal. Now, for those 5 enterprise applications, they are fearing that this 20 application could be a threat, could be a vulnerability, could be configuration issues. It may be connecting to a network which is compromised. So if you take this slide, and I'll make it available, is you can say, how do somebody connecting from the network, can I make a utility? Can I make an add-on? As soon as you connect to that network, it can quickly look at it and see if there is a bad, behavior. No security, no encryption, nothing like that, right? So you can develop in each of these vectors, right? I can tell you that each of the vectors, there are already softwares out there, applications are there, startups are working on it. Some are covering all the pieces here, some are covering this way, some are covering one-off, and they are all thriving. I go to conferences and I see that a lot of startups, they are kind of picking one of these vectors and trying to suggest to larger companies on this side, mobile security, and say, buy my product as an add-on to your product because your product is missing something big.
That is one area. Yes, of course. Thank you, sir, for this.
Sure. This one, I would say, a lot of people do not think of backup, right? And I have IT background for 20 years. One thing I always think of is if you can't recover the data, then you don't have a job. People will give you, will not fire you. People will not, be upset if you can recover the data. They may realize that you have messed it up, you have not done the right configuration, but everybody is looking for their data recovery. And this is where people are making money. I'm sure if you, if we were in live audience, if I say how many of you have heard about ransomware, I think everybody of you who is interested in cybersecurity, you would have heard of ransomware. The challenge is that who is paying for the ransomware? And I'll go back to this slide of IBM, right? So the cost of data breach report, people are paying money. It's just that how much is the data worth for them? For individual, it may be less, but for healthcare companies, uh, countries like US, where the data is the most important reason why the companies exist, you can read a lot more about it. A security company came online and their website was breached in 2 days. That company disappeared the third day. So the cost of data breach is driving that discussion, and more people in this side are taking in this one are taking as enterprise level. And if you think of it, this is 2020 picture, 2021, 2022. In each of these sections, right, you'll see compromises. And if you are developing a utility or you're developing software, you'll be able to sell it to the people. And who are the people? These are the enterprise companies, right? If you think of, a lot of years ago, it used to be mostly US companies used to pay. Now the whole world is realizing, if you ask Singapore, if you ask India, China, every country is trying to, attack it at different levels. And everybody's realizing that the data is the gold. It's no longer, I have a better phone and all. If you lose the data, you are really missing a larger share of information. And it's becoming very, very important. So any area you can work on, you can come up with the idea. It'll be really helpful for you to pitch in, you search on the internet where your competitor is. Let's go back to a few more slides, and I can go back and forth if you want, right? Each of these portion has a lot of opportunities. So think of it, this is OWASP is a standard which talks about the 10 mobile risk.
Sir, but before you move, I mean, I would also ask one more question that,
Sure.
we just discussed, I mean, I informed that, in India perspective, this the cyber security laws and national security policy 2020 is on the way. So do you see the legal, strength, maybe from US and India perspective, that from legality also more and more companies would like to take this kind of products which will create an opportunity. I mean, right now, our situation in India is not very much concrete, that we have laws, but it's not. But I believe that after this security policy 2020 is on the the place, maybe the mobile data companies or security companies would I mean, would it create some sort of opportunity or for the new
It will
person?
create- Yeah, no, great question. I think if you take a precedence, right? Precedence meaning the prior history of people doing it, right? You may have heard of GDPR, right? GDPR is basically a Europe law where it says that you cannot take information of a German or a French employee or a person and take it outside the world, outside the Europe Union, right? And they started it, and when it came, everybody was like, "Oh, who will care about that? Why should I care about it?" And what they did was they took few years to settle down, right? To tweak the rules, to make it a little flexible, but they kept on saying that the the people of my country are more important than your data. People of my country is more important than the services you provide and all. So they started creating this information set where he said that if my employee uses your application, I will not allow it unless you comply with my regulation. And I think China has done that, right? If you read about it, China in last few years, they have become very, very strict. So if you think of the future, if you take the world and you say in next 5 years, which country is where the business will be, where the people is, where the data is, and India shines as the biggest. Right? People talk about Brazil, people talk about Russia, people talk about some other countries and all. But the volume of people, and as you rightly said, the amount of data and the mobile devices we have, India is going to be the prominent consumer of mobile devices, mobile data, mobile services, you name it. The whole 5G, if you think of US population, is less than 300 million. If you think of the mobile phones, that's 200, 300 million, right? But within India, I'm sure there's billion or plus phone out there.
Yeah.
So the point is that India is a huge opportunity. It may not seem when you're there, right? But think of it, right? When I was watching China in last 10 years, right? In 10 years ago, China was basically saying, hey, I have a Chinese firewall. Everybody used to joke about, uh, Great Wall of China as a firewall, right? But today, in last 2 years, they have started enforcing policy. For example, if they say that you want to operate in China, you have to have a registered company and a registered name, right? So from an opportunity perspective, think of all the companies in the world, right? Let's say AT&T, Microsoft, Azure, and all, right? All this. So take example of Microsoft.in. That can be only registered in India. Microsoft.cn can be only registered in China. If somebody is entrepreneur and buys these large company .in upfront, sooner or later when you are going as a company to that country, you have to register it locally. And China just did it last year, right? It's opening up opportunity. So in the digital world, the opportunity has just started. It's not something, we see, oh, they have already been there. I have one of my best friend, he works for IBM. And, if you think of, top 10 companies in the digital world who is growing and, futures are there, you don't see IBM there. You see Google, you see Amazon and other ones. The same 5 years from now, if people are not, secure, people are not committed, people are not following the laws of the country, they will fall behind and other people will take over. So to your question of, how do you see India laws coming up? I think people will take it seriously when they start seeing that the enforcement is there. I heard about, Facebook being, called in Congress and things like those. I think those will become more and more because you may not know the amount of data which is going out of the country, and each of the data could be useful. It may have financial impact and it may have future impact. So I see a lot of opportunities out there, and this rules will be more stricter. They'll be a little bit flexible on certain side, but they'll be stricter. So more cloud companies will be there, more mobile companies will be there, because everybody is looking for a cheaper, better, faster solution, right? So I don't see that the law will go back down because no other country can enforce it. They're so small out there that they look at India and say, if India can do it. So when we looked at 10 years ago, we'll say, okay, China will do it. China 2018, China 2020 is a lot different. I think the same thing will happen to India unless the policies changes and government takes a different approach. I see that in next 4 years they'll be going after digital in a big way to protect the nation and protect the nation data. So again, I think from a mobile perspective, each of these you can read each of them, right? And as I said, I'll make this slide available. Each of these are being used and compromised by people, and if you can do something about it, there's a product out there. Again, these are standards. These are not something which somebody has just sit down and written overnight. So one thing I always suggest on the mobile is controls, right? So as I said, when you get a web link, when you get a message, first thing is slow down, right? Think of asset management. I know that a lot of family members from my side who are, back in India, they have 2 phones, 3 phones, some is lying in the drawer, some is lying somewhere else, some may not have been switched off. So how many devices do you have in your house? What are the devices connecting in your house Wi-Fi, right? Watch out for that because each is containing your fingerprint and data. Look at vulnerabilities, right? You don't have to be researcher or scientist to understand vulnerability. But next time you're downloading a software, think of vulnerabilities. And there are public sites which are telling you which vulnerability exists. So if you're choosing Android and it costs you 2,000 rupees, think from a security angle. If you ask the provider of the phone or the servicing, is this more secure? And it may be another 500 rupees or 1,000 rupees. It will be very much worth it because everybody's realizing those questions are being asked.
Sir, I'll tell you. Sorry to interrupt.
No problem.
I'm from the legal side. I'm saying that we have seen even the government's websites in India, which will first display message that website is not secure. I'm telling about income tax website. I'm telling about this provident fund. These are huge and large websites, but when you log in, it says that many times it says that it's not secure, and you would also not find that HTTPS, and So this is a actual situation here that I mean, if we know that okay, this is the only website we use that. Otherwise, the situation is like that. That it's very hard to believe that which one is secure, which one is not secure.
No, agreed. And one thing you may find is, and great question, is the country today, I think as a nation, they put the penalty on the user, right? So if I'm using a bank site, right, to your example, or tax site, and I do some mistake, right, I'm liable for it, and if I lose money, then I lose money, right? Nobody can help. I think some of the laws will become stricter for these LICs and SBIs and banking and all. I'm just not trying to name names, but these companies to be having a bucket of money or insurance for user error. A user, he typed something wrong. He is sending 200 rupees by mistake. He sent 2,000 rupees, right? So I think the laws will change to support the digital, because if you start, looking at digital fraud, right, it'll happen no matter what, right? So I think the government and other people will step in to protect, common mistakes and users. That's why if you think of why US is where it is, because there is subsidies and there's programs to protect consumers, and
Yes,
those
I
are
mean,
the right things.
India is still on Jago Grahak Jago mode.
Yeah.
So
Yes, you're
I
right.
think it's going to be changed, and there are a couple of laws that they are being enacted, data security, and so we are expecting, of course, these things to change in near future.
Yes, and more the target would be is, I'm sure there are a lot of movies out there, and we all can see it, where they're targeting people who are above 60, right? So people who are 60 today, they may have been born in, 60s or, 70s or before that, right? They are not much computer savvy. They are not mobile savvy. They are using it because their kids wants to send messages or vice versa. And if they, somebody calls them for OTP, they naively say, "Oh, this guy is calling from the bank. I don't know him, but he's saying he's coming from the bank," and he gives the OTP. So those kind of things is where people will, start going away from the phone and saying, "I'm not using this. I lost money here." So a lot of story will come, but again, it's a maturity process. The government and the system has to protect those people, right, by mistakes. Access control is another one. People think of, if I don't have a password on my phone, I don't have a passcode, it's better, everybody, my kid can use it and all. But put some authentication. If you tell your family saying, hey, the password is 4528 or something like that, it's not a big deal. But this is a big deal if you lose the phone. If you leave in a restaurant, it slips from while you're driving or something like that. It really protects you, and it really helps. Boundary protection, again, all of us, I'm sure you have wireless routers and switches at home. Try to protect that, right? Don't give your wireless, SSID or password to friends who is coming out there. Neighbors is saying, oh, I need this password. If you have given, please change it, right? After a day or 2 weeks, whatever it is. Also think of data recovery, right? Backups. Are you protecting your data into the iCloud or Android cloud or something, right? This one is your responsibility. You may say, okay, Apple is backing it up. I have bought this service and all that stuff, but you have to make sure that the backup of your data, the device doesn't matter. You can get the new device for 5,000 rupees easily if you really lose it. But the data becomes very important. Your contacts becomes very important. Also on the applications, just don't install applications because somebody said it. Think of what are the protections. Is it automatically sending your location, automatically enabling Bluetooth, automatically talking to other applications? Look at those. The last but not the least is, on the mobile, I draw this picture of family that, long time ago, there used to be one phone and dad used to own it or mom used to own it, right? Nowadays, everybody owns it, right? So all these things apply to all of the people in the house, maybe dad, mom, grandpa, right? And there is a series of data which is combined for the family, right? So if you are the technology savvy people, think of all these controls for all of the people. You are responsible. Don't think of, okay, he'll be taking care of the data. And then this is the last slide I have. I wanted to give example of, if we go to all the solutions we are looking for, right? We will not finish tonight. But how does large company protect data and devices? This is a concept which I have been using it for 10 years. It's called mobile device management. So as soon as you get a device, you register. You say, I'm so and so, my name is Ravi, I have a password. What it does is it takes your configuration of the mobile device and basically analyzes it and saying, this application is a weak application, this application is a compromised application. So going back to the security vulnerabilities of mobile, each of those vectors are, think of it, right? They were developed for a particular purposes, right? And they become now a platform of all these security products. So mobile device management is becoming very common for everybody. Consumer has not realized it that yet, but this is coming, right? So you have to proper restriction, you have to look at the business need, you have to look at what data is sending, what data is being saved, and things like those. So back to the question of where the entrepreneurs and startups should look at it, they should look at these large enterprise. And don't be shy about, oh, this has been developed in US, this has been developed in China. I think the question which was asked is, how does it impact India? You have to focus on India. You have to look at the rules and regulations which is coming up. And I think these rules and regulation doesn't come up in air, right? They are there to represent the people and the interaction of the country, right? So if you look at that data, vulnerability, how much, for example, Airtel or Geo, these devices are vulnerable. If you can build something securely from them and go to Geo and say, hey, next release of your software update, you should fix these ones. They may not pay you the first time, but if you constantly improve, I'm sure you can reuse it for Geo, to Airtel, to other providers. And securing the data will be the best thing ever. So either it's part of the service which is sold when the device is being sold, or it's part of a service you can build and you can sell you on your own, right? And you start with your friends and family, but target the enterprise. Large enterprises trying to protect all the large companies out there, right? The government ones, I don't think they have a good clue of their employees are using those applications, but surely they will. I think that with the digital India, I think this is a big driver which will enable each one of us to be secure.
So we have we have a question. I mean, it's not a question, but we were talking about here from the Indian perspective. This is what a noise.
But there's some extra sound coming from.
Yeah, multi-
Yeah.
so Ravindra Kumar Gupta, he is asking the same question: is banking apps are secure? In meantime, because a lot of people nowadays are also using mobile applications to do the banking. I mean, some of the banks are also insisting to download YONO and our application so that it's quite easy to make payments. So it's a question of Ravindra, how to know whether it's secure.
Yeah. So, Ravinder, good question. So I think financial is the biggest place where people make money. And sometimes when we think of the banks, we only think of the largest bank, let's say ICICI Bank and Bank of India or State Bank and all. But if you develop something to validate the bank has a secure website, there will be Bank of Mysore, Bank of Patiala, these people. So the top 5 banks will keep it very secure. Maybe RBI site is very secure. But if you think of next 500 banks which are there, you will see that those are the ones which can be easily compromised. Again, if the bank is a web content provider, you can give a utility, you can develop a utility and say, before you install the application, make sure that this banking site is secure. Right? You can create online tool, you can create a mobile application tool, which can target the contents and make sure that they are protected. That's one idea. The second one you can do is you can create something called honeypot. So you can create a honeypot mobile application and you can say every time somebody gives you a URL, take it through that application and install or try to go from there. So what honeypot does is it basically opens up the website on your site and it doesn't has any network connection. So if it does any bad thing, you can catch it and say, this is a bad software, please don't use it. So a couple ideas you can think of. Honeypot has been there for 5-6 years. Now people are talking about Honeypot 2, Honeypot version 3, and things like those. For mobile, I don't think people are giving that application yet.
Thank you, sir.
There's one very, I mean,
Saurav is asking. There's some noise.
No, it's
Yeah,
okay
I,
now.
quickly, it's not a question. Saurav Kumar, he has mentioned about a very recent case wherein there is some news of financial transactions from Chinese side, and it's sort of uh, hawala. So he's trying to. I mean, of course, it's related to security only, not only. I mean, may not be mobile, but uh, there's one recent issue going on from the Chinese side. So would you like to comment on this?
Yeah, so China, just like any other country which is developing, if you read about China from 1980s, they were a farming country. To 2020, it's the second in the world, right? And they have gone there because of education, gone there because they have improvised their people to get to a place where they were not considered anything 20, 30 years ago, to a place where they are asserting their power. So today, the only way you can assert power in a general sense is either by controlling the money or you showing off your power. And the banking ones, I don't think as a country they are interested in hijacking anybody's money,
Yeah.
right? But they are more interested in the vulnerabilities, right? As a country, they are looking for patterns. They're looking for what is India doing, right? If I can sit on SBI website or use a vulnerability, and I can see that it goes back to this one. Right? If you think of Bangladesh bank hacks, right? How can somebody think of somebody can take 81 million? Maybe somebody would think, oh, they may not have this much money. So in the Chinese context or in any context like that, right? They will go after the weak link in the bank, right? As I said, Bank of Patiala, Bank of something, right? Where you can compromise. But sitting on that side, you can see what is the transaction going on. Once you understand the pattern, then you can say, I want to attack here, I want to compromise here. So, sort of to your question, I think the Chinese is trying to look for patterns of how the money is moving, how the money is, either through Hawala or online or something else. And they're trying to understand a pattern. When the money moves, right, it's that, thing goes, right? When the sugar moves, right, the mouse comes there. It's the same thing. When the money moves there, the whole world follows. And that's what Chinese is trying to do is, where are people investing? So think of it. If in international level, if you are buying a gear, right, military gear or advanced gear, you're paying online transaction. So if you see that kind of large movement of money, you can start understanding what the country or what that community is trying to do. So banking is a big deal. And I think the only 10% of the real banks are doing a good security one. 90% of this doesn't has the money and the energy to put it more securely.
Sir, there is a general question. I mean, in our incubation center, we have seen that, in the COVID-19 arena, that we have more e-commerce startup coming up, whether it is into health services delivery or grocery and that hyper local startups. So all of them are involving online payment systems and online payment channels. So do you have any suggestions as a startup? If I am selecting, I'm starting my services and I'm taking online payments and I'm making a website or a portal and then I'm connecting it to maybe any of the Razor Pay or maybe any other PayU or Atom Technologies, different things. So do you suggest anything that as a startup I should think about? I mean, think twice and decide on these few points. What you suggest?
Yeah, so my suggestion is in any business, right, you have to think what margin do you have, right? If you go with a partner, we are very strong in financial sides, you will earn the trust of your clients right away. So let's say if you go Razor, if you go Bill.com or something like that, right? If your product is so good and the margins are good, I would say go to PayPal, right? If you go to PayPal, all of a sudden, it's like just going to a small bank versus, let's say RBI or SBI, right? When you enter, you get a trust right away. So if you're doing an online transaction and if those are more of a, it's not making too much money for you, try it with smaller sites. Maybe create a site saying that for larger transaction or something, please reach out to this number, because you don't want to make it, moving the money is all about trust. So if you are sure of your product and your services and you want to take it online, right, PayPal would be the best one because they put security behind everything and they enable a lot more services. I know it will be costlier. They keep a lot more margin. Amazon is coming with platform. Apple is coming with a platform because money is about trust. I would say that if you feel that you want to do something else, like another sites and all that stuff, um, there are utilities out there where you can ask for them. Say, can you give me your SOC 1 report? SOC 1 is a security operations report, and that site should give you that report, or whoever is the provider who is trying to sell you the service. So make sure that it's secure. It's not about money movement; it's about trust, right? Because people are paying online, they want to make sure that the news doesn't come out that your business was compromised 2 weeks from now, right? So my suggestion would be go for a higher end if you think that you want to scale. It does cost you money upfront, but it builds you trust right away. Oh, you're a partner with PayPal. Okay, I don't have to worry about it, right? So any other question?
Yeah, so Prem Chandra, he wrote about, I mean, again, it's on the security part. Uh,
Yeah, no, I think each question is a good question. Yeah,
okay.
please,
So I think we have
tell
all,
me if there's something I can answer as much as you know.
yeah. Can you see, sir, this question? Can a Chinese mobile take all data? It's from Prem Chandra. Transact with the bank. China has it, the server for data used in its own mobile, like banking and other. So I mean, again, it's on doing banking on the mobile and securing your data. Basically, that because most of the phones are even Chinese phone. Even if government is trying, the make to ban some applications, but there are n number of applications as well as the phone itself is Chinese. So you don't know that if even if it is secured, not secured, and you are putting, of course, everything there, your banking data, passwords, and everything.
Yeah, so my suggestion is that as a Chinese, right, think of it, right, as I was saying, India will be in that step in 6 years, right? So you have a business and people are coming to connect to your business, right? So if you have to connect to the Chinese site to pay something, right? If you're paying a large sum, then you have to think about it. But if you're paying transactional money and all that stuff, right? I don't think that's a problem, right? I know people are saying that China may have some sinister plans and all that stuff, but they are not targeting individuals. They are targeting large state actors. They are targeting large corporation and all that stuff. So if your efficiency of what you're trying to do is slowing you down from a China concern, I would say don't worry about it. Yeah, definitely don't create a site on their side. But if you're doing a transaction and it's going through China and they are mandating that they have to do it in China, India will do the same. I think Singapore and Korea is also working the same law. So don't be too concerned. Go after your velocity, go after your product. But in that duration, if you learn something from security, I think it will be better for you to, at least be trusting that this is a good site or not. In general, what is happening is the world is saying that if you have a server in China, I don't trust you. So what people are doing is, and these companies, including TikToks and all, they are creating servers in India, Europe, Africa, South America, North America, and so at least that alleviates the concern that this data is going to India server first and then going to China. You can't control that. But if it is India, then India government and European government and all, they are trying to watch the traffic. If they're trying to see any anomalies, they'll be able to address it. Not at
I think so.
individual level, but at the nation level.
A law is also on the place to keep the server in India. So I think this will create the situation better in the future. Sir, we have Mr. Sandeep Singh. His question is also related to cyber security, and probably he's trying to ask that whenever something big happens, like leak data of 5 million Gmail accounts, and then Google would come and say that it's not possible technically. So maybe, I mean, how you see that? Is it a security breach, or because the laws are not very concrete and these are vulnerable? If you situation happens, and I mean, what a common man could think of, I mean, to do in that.
So I would say go back to your question of entrepreneurship. So if I was able to develop a software and I have a friends circle who can address those gaps, I'll jump onto that. I'll take that opportunity. I'll take a similar opportunity and say, what can I develop? A utility. You don't have to develop a whole set of software and hardware. How can I make a difference? Can I develop a tool, develop a software where I can address this, where I can match it? And companies like Google and Facebook and Apple, they know that reputation is at stake. So they can easily pay you. They are, they have bounty programs and all. If you show the vulnerability, they'll pay you directly. That's one way to look at it. The second way to look at it is that, sometimes these news are extrapolated for the liability reason. In US, if there's a vulnerability, people are not worried about whose data is where. People are worried about how much liability I will have. And you must have seen, if you read that news article, you'll see 6 months down the line, that bank paid $1 billion to, affected people. Who are the affected people? If the consumer is individual like you'll get 10 rupees. Who's making the money? Lawyers.
Mm,
So lawyers is basically suing on your behalf of 10,000 people got affected, and they are trying to maximize the news, if you may, the flashy news, right? So, oh, this happened, so you are impacted and all that stuff. But as a common man, right, you have to kind of say if your Gmail is compromised or Hotmail is compromised, right? First thing to do is, and they have kept on improving the security, change your password, make a multi-factor authentication, things like those. So whatever has gone, you can't change it. Going forward, at least you can change. And the email is becoming an identity. You can't just change your, user at, hotmail.com or outlook.com or gmail.com to something else, because all your friends and families are connected to the previous email. So change the password, keep it dormant for a month and all. And then, if you see there's no other compromises, move on, right? You can't do anything which has gone in the past.
yes, sir. So thank you. Thanks a lot for your insight. I have a last question, and
Sure,
Achilles,
please.
I was just thinking, Achilles Kumar has also mentioned it. So to conclude, you could suggest 2 3 security applications which are trustful, which people can have in their mobile phones, because we have so many here. Uh, you know, so from your side, we would like to get some suggestions.
Yeah, so I think I go back to security applications, and I have seen this company. You can look at that company, mobile device management software. It's a company called Mobile Iron, mobile, mobile and iron as one word. And the good thing is that the founders and all those people were Indians, again, smart Indians. They saw the problem, 10 years ago, and they developed a product. Um, and that basically protects your devices from bad, software and things like those. There are other ones I can research, but my problem is that at the enterprise level, I can tell you there are a lot of companies out there. For the consumer, why don't I do this, right? I basically research some more and give you some ones. Basically, I think the question is around financial to see if how can you validate a website and things like those. And then we can communicate to the people who are registered through the email and send them the message.
Sure.
Okay.
Uh, so really wonderful session, Abhishek ji.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. So it was good meeting
Yes,
you
I
again.
think
Post
it's
question.
like I mean very late now. I mean, sir, yeah, it's almost like
No, it's great to be here. I think knowledge we share and we can protect each other well. I think that's the intent. So thank you for giving me the opportunity. I really appreciate you guys spending your weekend with me. So I know you have other things to do and a lot more to think about. So thank you for being with me.
Thanks a lot for your time, especially in this odd hours you have spent so much. I mean, the whole discussion was very detailed, and I guess that there are a lot of take homes from the perspective
Thank you.
of
Thank you
general
so much.
users.
We see
Yes,
more sessions.
Yeah, let's compile the question and maybe we do another session in a few
Thank you so
weeks
much.
and we do targeted ones so that we can answer those specific questions.
sure.
Thank
Exactly.
you. And thank you, Abhishek Ji and Sashi.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir.
Thanks a
Bye-bye.
lot, sir. Thank you. Good night.
Good
Thanks.
night.
Bye.
Good day.